Siobhan, your partner died 4 years ago.
Yes.
It's an awful situation for you to have to go through regardless. The reason you didn't get married was because his previous wife had sadly passed away and he promised that he wouldn't marry anybody else.
That's right, yes.
So a decision, a promise that he made to his former wife, and so you'd never done it. At what point did you realise, Siobhan, that the fact that you'd been living together, that he was the father of your 4 beautiful children, that you'd been together for 23 years, wasn't going to be enough for you to be able to get this bereavement benefit?
It was kind of towards the end of John's life that we were in touch with Macmillan. Their cancer unit had like a benefit section that explained things to you, and it was the Antrim branch. Denise Ford said that, are you aware that if you were married, you'd be entitled to this? And I said, no, absolutely not. But it was never going to be possible for me to get married. And it would have been wrong to get married at that point just for a benefit. So, I mean, we forgot about it until after John passed. And then Denise said again, do you want to do something about this? And yeah, absolutely.
So this is a 4-year journey, really, that you've been on to try and get to this point now.
Yes.
To try and get this law changed so you can get some benefit. What's the impact on families like yours when you've lost a partner, so the children have lost their father, and yet you can't get that benefit, and obviously they don't get any of the sort of the help that comes with it?
Well, I mean, whenever somebody dies, whenever somebody passes away, you lose that dynamic. You know, you lose that income that, you know, the surviving spouse then has to go out to bring in more money. And, yeah, so I was out working more hours away from my children at a time they could have done with me there more.
How much is that worth? What difference would it have made to you?
Actually, I never looked at the figures for it because it wasn't relevant, and it would have been too heartbreaking to have known how much we could have had. So I kind of shied away from that, and it really was on the principle that we were fighting this, and if we can gain anything financially, not just for us, but for all those other families.
And it is called a Widowed Parents Allowance, not a widower's allowance.
No,
so it seems extraordinary that if you are parents of children together, and you had been together such a long time, that you wouldn't be entitled to it simply because you weren't married.
Yes, I mean, this is why this was so important to us. It wasn't about me. I'm not a widow in the eyes of the law. I can't class myself as one. And do you know what? That's fine. But I am a parent. We were parents.
Laurie, you are Siobhan's lawyer.
Yeah.
Very often, unmarried couples and unmarried parents find themselves in a kind of legal loophole, don't they? Because marriage is seen as, you know, sort of a legal bedrock. And in this case, it seems terribly unfair.
Yeah, absolutely. For me as a lawyer, and at the time I was working in citizens' advice, and I knew that for all of the other benefits during lifetime, marriage doesn't actually matter. You're treated as a household, and Siobhan's family was treated as a household. So that's why it seemed so unfair, and it seemed like something that we had to challenge.
The Supreme Court decided that this was a breach of your human rights. But that doesn't enshrine it in law, as far as I understand. There needs to be a change in the law for this to affect everybody and presumably for you to get your money. Is that the case?
Yeah, absolutely. So the judgment clearly states that to disallow benefits to children like Siobhan's children and thousands of children throughout the UK is unlawful, and they've clearly indicated that. But they also said that it's for the government to change the law, and it's for them to decide that.
So you're delivering this letter today to Downing Street. They're all a bit busy at the moment. Obviously, they're in a conference, so it's not, timing-wise, it's not the best. But, of course, still bringing attention to what you've managed to achieve.
Yes.
What was that, before we talk about what we need the government to do, what was that moment like when the Supreme Court ruled in your favour after 4 years, after all this time?
I actually thought that it wasn't going to matter, you know, that I was going to be fine about it. No, I cried. I couldn't believe how emotional I was. I am so happy that it was us that done this. I didn't think we would have got as far as we did, but somebody had to start it, and I'm so glad we got to finish it.
Well, you've got to finish that part, but the next bit's the
Yes.
important bit, isn't it? Because the next bit is the bit where the government really does change this law. How confident are you now after the ruling that you can make this happen? And have you got a time frame in mind that you'll be pushing for, Siobhan?
No, I mean, we've had so many MPs that have been lobbying this, which is absolutely fantastic, and I thank them. It's out of my hands. It's up to them now.
Does it not automatically, if the Supreme Court rules, does it not automatically kind of roll on?
I think it should.
That MPs would change it?
Yeah, and what we would say is the government cannot continue to break the law, so they cannot continue to discriminate against children in this way. You know, this is 2018 in the UK, and we cannot continue to treat children in this way. So I think it's not a question of if, but it's a question of when they do it. But we would say it should be done as soon as possible, because bereaved children, they can't wait and they shouldn't have to wait.
Yeah. I wonder whether it's somehow given you some sort of strength in the wake of your loss, fighting this battle.
Well, yeah, I mean, it was to look my children in the eye, simple as, and just say that this was unjust, and I'd done everything I could to right that.